Welcome to another edition of the Book Trivia Podcast, where we attack our bookshelves with a magnifying glass to get the juicy insider scoop on author and novel trivia. I'm Jess, and here's everyone's favourite Greekophile, Rach.
Hello. How are you, Jess? Greekophile.
If you like your podcast with a side serving of sophisticated literary debates, you might want to look elsewhere, because we're all about the fun facts. Today we're taking an express subway all the way back in time to New York City and learning what it really means to grow up wondering if the world's just full of phonies. That's right. If you haven't guessed, today we'll be discussing J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, a timeless classic first published way back in 1951 that still sparks debate and nostalgia today. But before we get into it, let's do a quick round of general book trivia. Shall I start, Rach?
Yes.
Yes, we love a good trivia round. My first question for you is, which famous literary trio of sisters used the pseudonyms Currer, Ellis and Acton Bell?
Well, I don't know about the surnames, but famous literary sisters, 3 of them. I'm going to guess the Bronte sisters.
You are correct. And I'll give you some bonus points if you can name them all.
Okay.
So who's Currer?
Charlotte?
Yes. Who's Ellis?
Emily?
Yes.
And what's the third one?
Acton.
Anne Bronte. Yeah.
It gives it away because their first letters are the same as their name.
Yeah, that's cute. So they all had little pseudonyms.
And actually, the Bell part of it, apparently, and this is contested, but they think maybe because they lived next to a rectory and the bells of the church, and that's why they chose Bell. But I don't know if that's a big fat lie.
And it starts with B. It starts with B for Bronte as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder where they got the Bell from. So they all shared the same fake surname. That's funny. They must have been close. All right, Jess, I have a question for you. Question 1, multiple choice. Actually, they're all multiple choice.
Nice.
This week, Barbara Cartland, who died at the age of 98, wrote how many books? A, 235 books, B, 458 books, or C, 723 books.
I'm going for option B only because it's the only one that's got number 8 in it, and 8's my favourite number. So 458.
458. Incorrect. 723 books.
Holy moly.
I know.
That is wild. I can't even write one book.
123. So I was looking, I think if you wrote one book every day for 2 years, you'd have about 723 books.
Every day?
Well, obviously you can't write a book in a day, so I don't know how she did it. 723 books.
Oh, I'm impressed. Well done, Barbie. Okay.
Barbie.
My second one for you is, who wrote the novel 100 Years of Solitude?
Ooh.
I can give you his initials if you need.
Are the initials GGM?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't know how to say that. Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it too.
Okay.
And I've got an interesting side fact for you. When he died at 87 in 2014, his native Colombia, so where he was born, mandated 3 days of mourning because they loved him so much. It was called like mourning for Garbo because that's what they used to call him, Garbo.
Oh.
Or Gabbo. I don't know.
It's interesting. So that's like if we got 3 days off, if like Leanne Moriarty died.
Yeah, or Thomas Keneally, yeah.
Thomas Keneally. Mem Fox. Who knows?
I love that.
Okay, question 2 for Jess. Multiple choice again. The first novel to be published on the mainland of Australia was called The Guardian, A Tale, and it was published in A, the year 1066, B, the year 1789, or C, the year 1838.
Oh, well, guess which one I'm going to take because it's got 2 8s in it. 38.
Correct. That is correct. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that 1066 is 800 years before white settlement came to Australia. So
I love how you're logical and I was just thinking, I like the numbers.
Yeah, 1788, 89, that's 1 year after the colony was started.
Oh, very good. But I must admit, I'm glad you gave me multiple choice for that because I hate year questions.
Oh, yeah. You've told me before.
I would never get it.
Never give me year questions.
It's okay if it's a multiple choice.
Slip that one in, yeah.
Okay, and then my last question is, which American classic was published in Swedish with the translated title, so not the English title, but the translated title, A Man Without Scruples?
Oh. So it's an American
I've
book.
got a clue that'll give it away.
A Man Without Scruples. So, is it a movie? Is it American Psycho?
Not even close, but it is a movie. Do you want me to? I'll give you so Leo DiCaprio played the title role in the film adaptation.
Oh, the one where he's a con artist. No, not the one where he's a con artist. Okay, what other movies has he been in? What is that one? Catch Me If You Can.
No.
Okay, that's the one where he's a con artist.
Yeah,
I was thinking of.
Anyway, let me tell you because I think you're going to get it. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. But yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I've read that. Catch Me If You Can. It's actually a really good book as well as the film. But just related to The Great Gatsby, the title En man utan skrupler, which translates to A Man Without Scruples in Swedish. And I'm sorry if we have any Swedish listeners for absolutely massacring your beautiful language. And it's supposed to reflect the character Jay Gatsby's somewhat questionable moral compass in the book.
Yeah, no, it makes sense now that I know the answer, but I wouldn't have guessed that. All right, question 3 for you, Jess. Which Australian author wrote My Brilliant Career, a novel first published in 1901? A is Henry Lawson, B is Miles Franklin, and C
Miles Franklin. It's Miles Franklin.
Yes. It's not.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I had to read it years ago for school.
Oh, really?
And then watch the very boring movie as well.
Would you like some facts about Miles Franklin?
I'd love it.
Okay, so Stella Maria Sarah Miles Franklin is her full name, and she has 2 writing prizes which are awarded in her honour. There's the Miles Franklin Literary Award, which is the annual literary prize
in Australia.
But did you know that is awarded to a novel? Hang on, I've got to do your silly voice. A novel, which is the... I can't do it. Hang on. A novel which is of the highest literary merit and presents Australian life in any of its phases. That's the criteria. But there's also the Stella Prize, and that's awarded annually for the best work of literature by an Australian woman. So, yeah.
Wow, yes. I love that. I mean, I obviously know the Miles Franklin Award and I know the Stella Prize. I just never put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, so they're both named after her. So there you go. There's some book trivia for you.
Excellent book trivia. If you ever wanted some book trivia, you're at the right place.
Anyway, let's kick this episode off with our featured book, which is The Catcher in the Rye. So that was a novel published in 1951 by J.D. Salinger. The book is narrated by Holden Caulfield, who's a teenage boy from a wealthy New York family. And the story begins with Holden deciding to give the reader his recollection of a few specific days in his life, which led to his present circumstances in a mental health facility in California. Holden's story then begins back at the time of his expulsion from an expensive boarding school and recounts him wandering around New York City for a few days prior to Christmas. He's trying to find meaning, connection, and maybe himself. So, Jess, do you have a fun fact to start us off or a non-fun fact?
Yeah, I've got a very short fun fact. Did you know, Rach, that this novel has been compared to Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn?
I didn't know that, and I've always wanted to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
I actually have too. The comparison comes from its cultural impact because the book was a commercial success. After it was published, it was reprinted 8 times in the first 2 months, and it spent 30 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Its popularity did dip briefly for a time after that, but then had a resurgence by the late 1950s.
Wow. So the Mark Twain book was maybe 50 or 100 years earlier, and that was the big book that everyone read, and then this kind of took over and got put in the canon. Oh, I see. Wow. Okay, so had you read this before? And what do you think?
I had read it years ago. I'm talking way back in my 20s, again showing how old I am. And I vaguely remember it, but all I could remember was that it was easy to read and that I didn't think the ending was all that great because it felt like it just petered out. I'll be honest, when we went back in to do the reread, I'm still not really sure how I feel about it. The way he says goddamn and phonies and oh boy, it feels a bit juvenile. I did, as I kept reading, it felt less juvenile, but it's not one of those books that grab you straight away, in my opinion. But what I did like about the reread this time around was that I understood the ending better. I think I kind of had a bit of a brain fart the first time round, and I didn't realise that he was writing it all from a mental health facility. Sorry, spoiler alert.
By the time you got to the end, you'd forgotten the beginning. Yeah.
That's the twist that you're supposed to be wowed over. And obviously the first time I read it, I don't think I clocked it. Maybe I was just having a bad day. So, yeah, I understood it this time around. But overall, it left me feeling a bit sad, a bit melancholy by the end of it. And you know how I do love a happily ever after. This is not necessarily one of those. But what about you, Rach? How would you rate it? Had you read it before?
Yeah, very similar story to you. So I had read this when I was backpacking. I was a teenager at the end of the last century, actually. I found a copy lying around in a youth hostel in Edinburgh. I have this prejudice against books that I've heard about as classics. I always think I don't want to read that because I'm very, I don't know, anti-intellectual or something. And I just feel like, oh, that won't be for me. So I was aware of that. And then I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, I thought that would be a big, thick, weighty book. And it was this tiny little paperback. And then, of course, I picked it up because I was curious and I was like, oh, wow, it's like really, really easy to read. It's super accessible. So I think I read it all in one sitting back then. But same with you. I thought he was super, super cool when I was reading it as a teenager. I just believed
totally not.
I believed everything he said. And I was super impressed by what a cool guy he was wandering around by himself in New York City. And the whole thing went over my head. And then obviously reading it now as a very middle-aged woman, all I could see was how lonely he is and that his loneliness is just palpable and he's just trying to ring anyone that he knows and connect with
having
anyone
a mental health crisis.
Yeah, and so, time really changes, but the book doesn't change, you change.
Hey, Rach, can you guess what the JD in JD Salinger stands for?
I wouldn't have been able to before I started researching for this episode.
So you already know.
Oh, actually, Jerome, what's the D? David.
Jerome, it's Jerome David. Obviously, I also didn't know before I started researching, so there's a nice little fact for everyone. But let's kick it all off with a potted history of his early life and education, as we like to do. Yep. So old Jerome.
Are we calling him Jerry? Because I think his friends called him Jerry.
Yeah, I've got a bit about his name, Jerry. He was born in Manhattan, New York City on Jan 1st, 1919, so a New Year's baby. His father was a rabbi and also traded in kosher cheese. His mother was born in Iowa and was originally called Marie, but she changed her name to the more Jewish-sounding Miriam to appease her in-laws. And he also had an elder sister called Doris, so that's him at a younger age. Now, here's where the story gets quite interesting, as a lot of his early years mirror what happens with Holden in the book. In fact, Salinger himself described the novel sort of autobiographical. I can get that word out. Yeah. And he has said that it does reflect similarities with his own boyhood. For example, in 1932, his family moved to Park Avenue, after which he enrolled at the nearby private McBurney School. At McBurney, Salinger struggled to fit in and tried to conform by calling himself Jerry, to your point. Yeah, but his dad and his mum still called him Sonny. While he was at McBurney, he managed the fencing team, just like our mate Holden. He wrote for the school newspaper. He also acted in plays, and he did actually show a bit of dramatic talent. However, his father was pretty opposed to his interest in acting, again, similar to Holden's parents' dismay at their kids' future direction. Next, the real-life Salinger was sent to a military academy in Pennsylvania. While he was there, he was writing stories secretly at night and was the literary editor of the yearbook. He joined several clubs like Glee, Aviation, French, non-commissioned officers. But he was considered a pretty mediocre student, even though his IQ was recorded at slightly above average, between 111 and 115. And then in 1936, so this is when he was 17, he began studying at New York University, but dropped out the next year. Following that, he's gone on to drop out quite a few times. His father recruited him to work at their family-owned meat importing business in Vienna and Poland. But unfortunately, ultimately, Salinger was pretty disillusioned by that experience and rejected it as a career. So instead, at 19, he attended yet another college in Pennsylvania. He wrote a column in the school paper and he dropped out after one semester. And then later, last one, I promise you, he attended Columbia University's School of General Studies, where he excelled in a writing class with Whit Burnett, and he published his first short story, The Young Folks in Story magazine. So a bit of a long story there, but by all accounts, his educational history very much mirrored Holden's penchant for dropping out.
And I think he was also really tall and thin like Holden and antisocial. As well. I wonder if he had grey hair like Holden did as well.
And walked around in a hunting hat turned backwards with the flaps.
Yeah. So I've got a little fact for you. Did you know that the final building, Jerry, are we calling him Jerry?
Yeah, we can
Salinger.
Or J-Dog?
J-Dog? I'll just call him Salinger. The final building he lived in Manhattan before he eventually moved to Cornish, New Hampshire, was, at a different time, the residence of Peter Allen and Liza Minnelli. How about those two for neighbours?
Nice.
Trivia for you.
Very good trivia. Let me jump in with another fact too. So going back to the actual book, did you know it faced bans in several countries and some US schools because of coarse language and subject matter?
Coarse language. God damn. Dang.
So 237 uses of goddamn, 58 bastards, and 31 Christ's sakes, and 1 flatulence mention. Don't forget the flatulence.
I don't remember the flatulence. Is that in the boarding school?
I think so. Okay. But despite the bans, newspapers coined the term catch a cult due to its devoted following. But did you know, Rach, even though it was an immediate bestseller, because of all the scrutiny, Salinger ended up becoming a bit of a recluse, and as a result he published less frequently later on down the track, which is a bit sad.
I think we get to that later in the episode. So I've got another quick fact for you. This is a coming of age story, obviously. If you want to say coming of age in a fancy way, you can call it a Bildungsroman. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It comes from the German language, and Bildung translates to formation or education, and then Roman translates to novel. So it means education novel. So you can sound really fancy if you say Bildungsroman instead of coming of age. Do you like that?
I'm not even going to attempt it, but I do love it. As I've already told you, I am trying not to do accents on the podcast.
I want more, not less.
Let's talk some facts about the title of the book itself. If you've read it, as you're reading, you find out that Holden mishears a kid singing a song. If a body catch a body coming through the rye is what he hears. But the lyrics he's referring to is a Scottish poem by Robert Burns called Coming Through the Rye. And the line is actually, if a body meet a body coming through the rye. So not if a body catch a body. And I didn't know this, but when I looked it up, that a whole episode that inspires Holden's fantasy job at the end of saving children from falling off a cliff, it's like making him a catcher in the rye who protects their innocence. But I didn't, even on my second read, I didn't
went
catch that
over
myself.
the subtext.
I'm not great with subtext.
I just Googled.
Yeah, thank God.
I just
Googled.
it. What does this mean? Oh, okay.
Extra fun related fact, Burns' poem was set to a Scottish melody and it was nearly identical to Auld Lang Syne, you know. Do you want to attempt to sing it, Rach?
Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah.
It's still early December. We're not near the 31st yet. I'll give that a pass.
Shall we open this segment with some more interesting facts about Salinger's life, Rach?
Yes, please.
After his studying years were over, Salinger briefly worked as an entertainment director on a cruise ship in 1941. I know, so random. But apparently he was involved with organising activities and possibly even performed as a dancer or a host. It's unconfirmed reports.
Yeah.
And the ship that he worked on was called MS Kungsholm.
Bildungsroman.
His duties included organising games and socialising with the passengers.
He would have hated that.
A year after, in 1942, Salinger was drafted into the US Army. It was there in the Army where he served as a counterintelligence agent in major World War II campaigns, including D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge. Guess who he met during the war?
Oh, someone famous?
Rhymes with Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, who could that be? Is it Ernest Hemingway?
Oh, my God, how'd you guess?
Why was Ernest Hemingway over there in World War II? Didn't he go and fight in the Spanish Civil War beforehand?
Quite possibly, but he was a war correspondent. Good old Ernie was a war correspondent.
Okay.
And he was impressed by Salinger's writing talent, so they struck up a bit of a pen pal friendship, and they were sending each other letters throughout their time at war. So that's interesting. Meanwhile, back on the war, Salinger became part of the Ritchie Boys. I had to, again, look this up, but it was a secret US military unit, and they gathered intelligence that helped the Allies win the war. They're quite famous, I think.
Really? That's another novelist that became a spy. So Roald Dahl, Ian Fleming, J.D. Salinger. Crazy.
They're all in very good company.
Yeah.
He used his French and German skills and actually interrogated prisoners of war, and he entered the Kaufering concentration camp in 1945. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. It starts with K. Kaufering. It's said that his wartime experiences deeply affected him, as you can imagine. He suffered combat stress, and he said he never got over the smell of burning flesh. Oh, the poor guy. I can imagine it would have been very, very traumatic.
Yeah. Well, let's get into talking about the book again and get rid of that smell out of our nostrils. The book is famously about Holden's breakdown at the thought of becoming an adult. And we're going to get onto his name in a bit more detail shortly, because that actually links to the theme of the high value he places on the innocence in children. He really worships children and thinks a lot about putting them up on pedestals to protect, in a way, especially his little sister Phoebe and his dead brother Ali, who are the pinnacle of childhood innocence. He spends time rubbing out swearing graffiti at Phoebe's school off the wall, which is to protect their innocence. And then he obviously has that fantasy job about catching children in the riot, and it's a metaphor for becoming an adult, like falling off the cliff is the metaphor for children growing up and becoming adults. Yeah.
I was today years old when I realised that.
So linked to that theme, he obviously distrusts most adults as phonies because they've fallen off the cliff. Then, of course, in the book there's a theme running through the death of his little brother Ali, who's died of leukemia a couple of years earlier to the book's events. And he has that strange obsession with the ducks and the frozen pond in Central Park.
Yeah.
So that's a metaphor for his fear of change and his anxieties about growing up. So they're all really linked. All these themes are linked together. And then there's also a strong theme throughout the book. He's really, really upset about the potential date rape of his friend Jane at the hands of his roommate Stradlater. But he just cannot phone her throughout the entire book. He can't pick up the phone and
yet he tries to phone everyone else.
Yes, exactly. Similarly to not being able to follow through with Jane, he hires Sunny to come to his hotel room but can't go through with that and just wants to talk to her. And he does go on a date with Sally, but then he ends up screaming at her and then begs her to run away with him. And she ends up crying and going home. So weird relationship with women, which I think is reflected in J.D. Salinger's real life too. He was a bit of a creep.
Yes, which we'll go into.
Yeah.
We'll go into it in a bit more detail.
Him and Ernest Hemingway, both creeps. And then there's Also his forgetfulness. The team's fencing equipment, he leaves it on the subway. And apparently that illustrates his struggle with any responsibility, hence not wanting to become an adult. And the final theme is his strange propensity to lie, which he tells you about in the book. Like if he's going to the shop and you say, where are you going? He'll say, I'm off to the opera. And he'll just make up lies for no reason. And he has an encounter with a school mum on the train very early in the book and makes up all these lies about her son just to watch her reaction. But I think it's actually supposed to flag to the reader what an unreliable narrator he was.
Yeah.
But obviously when I was a teenager, straight over my head. Did not get that. But yes, unreliable narrator.
And it's interesting because even though it's a story about a kid leaving college, it's clear the experiences that he had in the war definitely fed into those themes and the grief and the difficulty growing up.
And the alienation.
Yeah. I actually went back to look at the timeline because I wanted to work out how and when he had written it. So it seems like Salinger actually began developing the character of Holden Caulfield in the early 1940s, well before the war. And Holden was the main protagonist in a couple of his short stories. There's one called Slight Rebellion off Madison, which was sold to the New Yorker in 1941.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But they delayed its publication until after World War II.
Right.
And then what happened was during World War II, he was continuing to write and he drafted large portions of the novel, sometimes sharing early chapters with literary friends, including Hemingway,
yes.
Old Ernie. And then after the war is when he really expanded the Holden Caulfield material into the full-length novel that we get today. So in 1950, the New Yorker rejected a novella-length manuscript and Harcourt Brace and Company accepted it on the condition that he rewrite most of it, which Salinger actually declined. And then Salinger's agent submitted the book to Little Brown and Company, who published it on July 16, 1951. I bet Harcourt Brace and Company were kicking themselves about insisting on a rewrite because once it was published, the novel was an immediate success. It was reprinted several times. I think I already mentioned in its first months, and it has sold over 70 million copies since publication. So
70 million.
You wouldn't want to be the person who had said, we'll do it, but only if you rewrite.
Oh, my goodness. Just goes to show the subjectivity of art. What one person's like, no, rewrite it. Another person's like, 70 million copies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, my fact is about the name Holden Caulfield. I didn't realise he'd used that character in other writing. That's interesting. But J.D. Salinger is quoted as saying he came up with the name Holden Caulfield by combining the names of two Hollywood stars. So William Holden, and Joan Caulfield. They're the Hollywood stars.
Hey, yeah.
But if you like to overanalyze, which sometimes I do, the name Holden Caulfield can be interpreted to contain a very specific meaning because Holden is a homophone for hold on. Shout out to Wilson Phillips fans. Hold on. And then caul is a birth membrane. It's the name for the amniotic sac. Caul in folklore, it symbolises the protection of childhood innocence.
Yeah, because a lot of babies are born with the caul on their head.
Yeah.
The remnants of the caul.
If you have it born over your eyes, it means you don't see the horror of the world. You have innocent eyes.
Surely not.
Well, it's fairly widely known, but the field obviously can be interpreted to the field of rye that he wants to save children from in the book. So his name can be seen as a hidden in plain sight reference to holding on to childhood innocence if you read it like that.
That is very involved and very smart to come up with that, if that is indeed a real true fact. Not that I'm saying you're wrong. But I'm just like, wow, mind blown.
He's saying I just combined William Holden and Joan Caulfield. That's it. But everyone else is saying, no, caul has a meaning and it's known in a lot of cultures for being associated with children and innocence. But speaking of cauls, my high school English teacher, who was Irish, so my Irish English teacher, her husband was born in a caul and in Ireland it's really auspicious, as in many other countries. But the hospital hung the call up to dry to give it to them because it's this really lucky thing in Ireland.
What did they do with it?
Somebody came through the hospital and stole it. Don't you think that's weird? Stealing some baby's amniotic sac out of a drying rack in a hospital. What do you do with it?
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's lucky, but yeah, there's my fact.
You've really ended on a pretty gross.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Anyway, I think we should ask silly questions now. So,
Yeah.
Jess, would you rather walk around with Holden Caulfield's red hunting cap permanently attached to your head for life, or would you rather marry Stradlater, his horrible roommate?
Oh, I'm going to take the hunting cap. I actually look pretty good in hats. And those flaps, that will keep your ears nice and warm in the winter.
Yeah, what about, it was 40 degrees here yesterday. Imagine.
I know, actually, it would have been pretty.
You would have had to tie the flaps back then.
Very sweaty.
Ooh.
But yeah, come on, Stradlater, no thank you. What about you?
I don't know. How long do you have to be married to Stradlater, and are you allowed to murder him? I don't know. Maybe.
Got any mushrooms?
Yeah. Just make him a few beef Wellingtons. I don't know. I don't know. The cap would be fine if I lived in a cold climate, but I don't think it'd.
Yeah, you're right, actually. It would have been.
I couldn't live in
yesterday.
Sydney with that on my head all year for the rest of my life.
You do have a point. So you'd rather murder than feeling too hot?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Okay, question number 2, which is the last question. Who would you rather have as your neighbour, JD Salinger or Liza Minnelli?
Oh, Liza, for sure. I reckon she would be fabulous.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, Liza Minnelli. I think JD Salinger's probably a creep.
Yeah, let's talk about it in the next segment because I agree. He's a bit of a pervy weirdo.
Yeah.
Shall we get into a bit of Salinger's juicy love life details,
yes.
Rachie?
Yep.
Turns out old Jerry was a bit of a Casanova. We've alluded to it a little bit, but strap in because it's a wild ride. In the 1940s, Salinger dated Una O'Neill, the daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill, but their relationship ended when Una began seeing none other than the king of slapstick, Mr. Charlie Chaplin.
Ooh.
Here's an even funner related fact because I know you love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The name Una should be quite familiar because Una O'Neill went on to marry Charlie Chaplin and their granddaughter is called Una Chaplin and Una Chaplin is actually the actress who plays Rob Stark's future wife. Very big spoiler alert here if you haven't watched or read the series, but she gets pregnant and meets her untimely end at the Red Wedding Massacre. So that's Una Chaplin.
Yeah.
I've gone way off track here with old Jerry's love life.
I like facts like that.
Yeah, I knew you'd love it.
From JD's 1940s girlfriend to the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Why not?
It's 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yes, exactly.
But let's get back on track. So the love machine himself, JD. In 1945, he married the first of 3 wives. Her name was Sylvia Waller, a German doctor. They were only together for 8 months before they had the marriage annulled. His next wife was called Claire Douglas, whom he met when she was just a young student. They were married and actually had 2 kids, Margaret and Matthew, but they divorced in 1967.
I believe that he was 36 and Claire was 19 when they got married.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much. In the 1970s, around 1972, he began a relationship with Joyce Maynard, an 18-year-old fan.
Oh, my God, he's even older by then.
Yeah, and he lived with her for nearly a year before the relationship ended abruptly. Then in the 1980s, he was involved with the television actress Elaine Joyce for several years. I don't know how old she was. Their relationship ended up finishing up too. But finally, following that around 1988, Salinger married his 3rd and final wife, Colleen O'Neill, who was a nurse and a quilt maker, approximately 40 years his junior.
Oh, my God. He's the guy. He's Matthew McConaughey in what's that movie where he's like, I get older, they stay the same age. Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused, yeah. All right.
Yes, that one.
With Colleen, they ended up remaining married until his death in 2010. We've already said it, but barring Colleen, the common thread with most of Salinger's relationships seems that he'd formed relationships with much younger women or even teenage girls. The worst thing when I was reading through this is that he frequently initiated these relationships through letters after they had admired his work. So I think he sounds like a bit of a pervy
predator.
Creep.
Yeah.
TBH.
But you made me feel sorry for him earlier with the war stuff. Maybe that's why he became a recluse, because he was a creep. So, Jess, have you heard of the Streisand effect? Have you heard of that?
No.
I'm going to tell you what it is. It's a phenomenon where an attempt to hide, remove, or censor information has the unintended consequence of making it more widely known. So this occurs...
Why is it called the Streisand?
So Barbra Streisand tried to suppress or have removed overhead photos of her Californian house, taken off the internet, and it actually just drew loads and loads of attention to the photos of her house that she didn't want anyone to see and where they were on the internet. So then everyone ended up knowing exactly how big her house was and where it was. So the effort to suppress actually draws public attention and leads to increased awareness and circulation of the information that it's supposed to conceal. But I think it could be called the Salinger effect, because he was doing this before Barbra Streisand did the house photo things. Because the way he chose to pursue his privacy and no longer publish actually meant he drew loads more attention to himself as this like reclusive person that wrote all these books but didn't publish them, and people were always going on treks to try to see if they could spot him up in New Hampshire and try to get into his house and talk to him.
Yeah, right.
If you just lived normally in a normal street and went out on daily errands, I don't think people would have been that fascinated with you. So
yeah,
he's definitely Streisand affected himself, I think.
Very interesting. I have a not really related fact. It's just around the book itself. So in the 1970s, did you know some US high school teachers were fired or they were forced to resign when they assigned the book as reading materials for their students?
Really? 1970s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the goddams or bastards or something, I don't know.
Maybe the fact that he didn't respect authority.
All of the above. And maybe because he was just a pervy guy. We'll never know.
But I don't think they would have known that about him in the 1970s.
Yeah, true. True enough. Despite those controversies, it does remain widely read. It sells 250,000 copies annually as of 2004.
That's a lot. I wonder how much money he got for every book sold, even if it was just $1. It's a lot of money. Let's talk about Catcher in the Rye and pop culture. So one of the most famous facts is that a few high-profile 1980s assassinations or attempted assassinations involved this book. So John Hinckley Jr. was found with a copy of this book when he attempted to assassinate the President of the United States of America, Ronald Reagan, in 1981, and a lot was made of that.
So it was on his person?
No, I think it was in the motel room he was staying in at the time. Okay. I don't think he was carrying it with him when he shot at Ronald Reagan, but the press really hammed that up, and then it turned out there was maybe a dozen books in the hotel room, and that was just one of them. There could have been 11 Barbara Cartlands in this, and they just told everybody about the Catcher in the Rye. But John Lennon's assassin, Mark David Chapman, was motivated in part by his obsession with phonies, and he actually was carrying a copy when he was arrested for the murder of John Lennon in 1980, which wasn't that long after he had murdered John Lennon. And he actually read parts of the book aloud during his sentencing hearing.
Whoa, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
boy.
I think With that one, he'd gone to John Lennon, had an autograph from him earlier in the day, and then he didn't enjoy that interaction, decided John Lennon was a phony and went back and shot him later. So very definitely influenced there. But this book's title is also name-checked in the famous Billy Joel song, We Didn't Start the Fire.
We didn't start the fire.
Yeah.
It's
something Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, it's in there. And other pop culture references. The first 3 films by Wes Anderson, Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and The Royal Tenenbaums, have all been cited as heavily influenced by Salinger's writing. There's a precocious little sister in Bottle Rocket who is way more mature than her older brother. Then the weird dysfunctional family relationships of former child prodigies in The Tenenbaums is really reflected by the Glass family that Salinger wrote about a lot, like the Franny and Zoe and the Banana Fish Glass family. And Anderson's earliest work has Salinger stamped all over it, apparently, if you know where to look.
Has he actually said, oh, it's my favourite book?
I think he was saying that his earlier movies were influenced by a few people, including J.D. Salinger, because obviously he has a very unique visual style and that would have different influences too. So it's not just Salinger. But speaking of movies, there's a film called Igby Goes Down, which stars Kieran Culkin. And that's often cited as a very sneaky version of Catcher in the Rye due to the huge similarities of the book and the film. Kieran plays an early 2000s version of a rebellious, privileged teenage protagonist disillusioned with the world around him and searching for meaning. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
But you might know Kieran from his characterization of Roman Roy in Succession. That's where he plays Roman, who's a privileged, alienated rich kid in New York in the 2020s. So there you go. I first saw Kieran Culkin on stage with Michael Cera at the Sydney Opera House in a play called This Is Our Youth. And in that play, he was playing a privileged, alienated rich kid in New York in the 1980s.
Typecast.
You're really getting into the Holden Caulfields of 80s, 2000s, 2020s. It's funny.
You could also say that because I've been watching a lot of Home Alone because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And he obviously plays the younger brother. But
the little
a bit
brother.
Too young to be.
Yeah. He's like the baby Holden Caulfield before he grows up. He just keeps playing Holden Caulfield in every role.
So we talked a bit pop culture references in our previous segment. Let's now talk about TV and film adaptations. Considering how widely beloved the story is, you'd expect there to have been tons of makes upon remakes, right, Rach?
Yep.
Wrong. Apparently, Salinger once hoped to sell the film rights for financial security, but he became disillusioned after a 1949 film adaptation of a different story, which was called Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut. Yeah, that.
That's where the Babysitters Club was from, Connecticut.
But I always read it, Connecticut. Okay, anyway, so he was disillusioned because of that 1949 adaptation.
That experience went wrong.
Well, it was very badly received by critics, so the whole experience caused him to cease allowing film adaptations thereafter forever.
Yep. He did that with his writing too. He got a really bad review and stopped publishing ever again.
Yeah, he rejected numerous film offers, including one from Samuel Goldwyn. High-profile filmmakers such as Billy Wilder, Harvey Weinstein, and Steven Spielberg all tried. They all tried to buy the rights without success, obviously. And Jerry Lewis reportedly tried for years to play Holden Caulfield, but Salinger refused to allow any adaptations, so Jerry Lewis and all the other directors never got their wishes. In fact, Joyce Maynard, his former lover, she actually remarked she thinks only Salinger himself could have played Holden Caulfield if a film was ever to be made. So very interesting. But it doesn't sound like there will ever be an adaptation.
No, that's funny because Jerry Lewis, I can imagine doing it. He wanted to be like Jim. You know how Jim Carrey went from comedy to serious with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Spotless Mind, yeah.
Yeah, so Jerry Lewis wanted to do that and spent ages trying to make this weird film about being a clown and saving French children. And it's been locked up for years and years and years, and no one's ever seen the footage. So I can imagine him wanting to do Catcher in the Rye. My piece of trivia is we've talked about how Salinger hailed from a wealthy Park Avenue family and his father, Sol, was an importer of luxury food items. He basically bummed around on his father's money for years, all the times you were talking about when he went to uni and dropped out, and went to school and dropped out, and went to Europe and didn't like the meat importing business and dropped out. So that actually led to him never obtaining a social security number, which is basically a tax file number, until he was in his early 30s, after he'd finished being in the war, because he hadn't needed one prior to that, because he basically hadn't earned any money until his early 30s.
Little brat.
Yeah.
A Nepo baby.
So privileged. But yeah, the success of Catcher in the Rye and the few other works he published meant that he
paid his dad back.
I doubt he paid his dad back, but he left a very valuable estate when he died. And it was estimated to be worth around $20 million.
Nice. I'd love to be an heiress.
I know. When he died, that also meant he would no longer be able to enforce his wishes about his writing being turned into films or never selling the rights to Catcher in the Rye.
Couldn't he put like a clause? Like,
I think he
you can have this money, but
I think he probably has put that in. But the estate controllers can basically do what they want after. You don't have to follow the wishes of dead people if you don't want. I don't think you do. I don't know. I guess it depends how good your lawyers are. But anyway, the estimated value of the film rights is only $2 million because of how anti-licensing he was during his life. So he actually cost the estate a ton of money, because even now people don't want to touch the movie because he was so anti making it in his lifetime that they think it wouldn't be a success if they made it now.
Interesting. This is a good segue because you're talking about his estate. I'm assuming his daughter would have been one of the recipients of his estate. And I've got a nice little fact about her. Did you know that Salinger actually wanted to name his own real-life daughter Phoebe after Phoebe in the book?
After Phoebe in the book. Phoebe Caulfield.
She was interviewed about it, the daughter was, and she said, I was nearly christened Phoebe, my father's choice of name, after Holden Caulfield's beloved sister in The Catcher in the Rye, but my mother prevailed and I was given my own name, Margaret Ann, or Peggy for short. What would you prefer to be called, Phoebe or Peggy?
Phoebe.
Yeah, Peggy. Me too. I think the mum did a disservice there. I think I would have chosen Phoebe too.
You can shorten Margaret to other names. You could be Meg.
Margaret.
Meg's much nice.
Maggie?
Maggie.
Rhett?
Margot.
Nah,
Margaret.
I think Phoebe's is better.
Peggy's the worst. Sorry to all the Peggies.
Oh, yeah, we do love all the Maggies as well.
The Maggies and the Megs and the Phoebes. Anyway, let's talk about the end of the book. What did you think of the ending, Jess?
Well, like I said at the start, I think the ending totally went over my head that first time. I don't think it even twigged to me that he was writing from a medical institution where he had obviously had to go after that breakdown that he's had. So it was really good to revisit it and realize that the book doesn't just peter out like I've always thought. When I've spoken to people, I've gone, oh yeah, it's a good book, but it does just kind of peter out. So yeah, now I understand it. And I also, on the first read, I didn't understand the whole Catcher in the Rye title and how he wanted to save the kids going off the cliff in the first read. I'm glad I got a bit more of the subtext in my older age. But I think my main problem, as you already know, is I really do love a happily ever after. So of course, I never can quite love these books that end with a bit of a bum out. What about you?
Yeah. Like you, I suppose the ending is the beginning in a roundabout way, because in the beginning of the book he tells you he's holed up in California and he's waiting for his older brother to drive him back east. And it seems like he's going to be sent to a military academy at the beginning of the book, his next school year. It's not a great ending, is it? He's just going to be put into the same cycle again.
what I got out of it was that you're supposed to be like, oh, there's the twist, because you actually realise he's been writing this as a diary in the mental institution or wherever he's gone to recover from this breakdown that he's had.
Yeah.
And so that's the twist. It wasn't just him wandering around, you know.
Yeah,
that's
but
how I took it anyway.
by the time you get to the actual ending of the book, you've kind of forgotten that he's in California and waiting to be sent to military school.
Hmm.
So in the final pages in the physical book, he's putting Phoebe on the merry-go-round and standing back as an adult observer. He's not getting on the merry-go-round with her because he's too grown up. But he's also resigning himself that he's going to take Phoebe home to their parents' apartment and face the music after the carousel stops. And he obviously knows that they're going to send him to the mental institution in California. But interestingly, there's a saying in America which is reach for the brass ring. And that saying actually comes from old carousel rides. And it means if you get the chance to reach for something valuable or rare, you should go for it. Because on old carousels, the riders could stretch out and try to grab an actual brass ring from a dispenser. Most of the rings were iron, but there was always one brass one. And if you got that one, it meant you got a free ride. So Holden's actually watching Phoebe do that at the end of the book. She's reaching for the ring because she's old enough now. And he's watching that and realizing that she's growing up and he needs to grow up. So I guess if you know that, which I didn't because I'm not American,
Me either.
It maybe is a bit more symbolic and you get a bit more subtext out of it. So, yeah, with you, not a great ending, a bit weak. Okay, let's wrap it up and we'll start with our final round of true or false. So, Jess, I'm going to start. True or false? Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis and The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham were both published in the same year as Catcher in the Rye.
Ooh.
True or false?
I love both of those books. I'm going to say true.
It's true.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. My first true or false for you. Salinger became a serious follower of Zen Buddhism by the late 1940s. True or false?
I am going to say true.
Yes, it is true. By the late 1940s, old Jerry had become a serious follower of Zen Buddhism. He was so into it that he even gave reading lists on Zen to his dates.
Creepy.
It said that his interest in Zen helped him cope with the mental struggles he faced after serving in World War II. So whatever helps, I guess.
Fair enough. Okay, Jess, true or false? J.D. Salinger was reported to have given at least one of his dates an instructive reading list of religious texts he wanted her to read, and also reportedly monitored every morsel of food she ate when they were living together. That's how you can tell we don't check our things.
I didn't know about the food, though.
Yeah.
This guy, what a creep.
I think he was right into macrobiotic eating.
Well before vegans and all of that.
Joyce Maynard, he basically wanted her to stay really, really, really skinny, like teenage girls. And so he monitored all her food and she wasn't allowed to eat that much.
It just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
I've got a very bland true or false because we've really already talked about this. So if you get it wrong, I'm very questioning whether you have been present during this podcast.
I could get it wrong. Let's see.
I highly doubt it. True or false, Salinger lived a very public life and often gave interviews about his books and personal beliefs.
I'm going to say false.
Yes, as we already have established, he was very private and he rarely gave interviews. You can tell I was really running out of true or false at this stage. I have one good last one left.
Oh, I've got one more for you. This is my last one. So since J.D. Salinger's death, his estate has actually managed to sell the movie rights to a production company, and that production company is owned by Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, and Jacob is planning to star in a movie version of Catcher in the Rye as we speak.
Wow, if that's the case, I'm hoping it's true because Jacob Elordi is a hottie, for one, and for two,
he's tall and thin.
He's tall and thin, but he loves books. Like he's often photographed picking up
Reading.
books and reading them.
Is
and
he?
he's done a lot of, and he's in the new Frankenstein adaptation. And then also Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi are adapting A Wuthering Heights. So I think that's coming out soon as well. Because they both copped a lot of flack for being Heathcliff and Catherine. But again, I think it will be good.
I think when you think Heathcliff and Catherine, you think people from Queensland, definitely, which they both are.
Well, that's the flack. They basically said we're going a bit off-piste here.
You look like Barbie and you look like Ken.
Exactly. Catherine is 17 in the book, and Heathcliff is known for being very swarthy and orphan. Anyway, the director who chose them said the reason why she chose Jacob Elordi is because when he filmed Saltburn, she saw him with sideburns and she was like, oh my God, he is the cover of Heathcliff, that the book that I read all those years ago because of the sideburns.
So she has a Heathcliff in her brain and it looks exactly like Jacob Elordi.
Anyway,
well,
sorry, we've completely gone off track here, but I'm going to say true to your question.
You're going to say true, but it was false. It was a trick question. I made it up.
Okay, and I feel silly now for going off on a big rant. Okay, I've got one more true or false for you. Did J.D. Salinger engage in the practice of drinking his own urine?
My God, it just sounds like something a weirdo that lives alone controlling people. Yeah, true. True.
It is true, and it is gross. According to his daughter, Margaret, this was one of several unusual health and spiritual practices he pursued through his life, which also included using an orgone box and fasting. So that's it.
Have you got a final fact for us?
Yeah, let's go with some final facts. My one is just around Salinger himself. So we've already established he was a bit of a weirdo, but he did love writing letters, and later in life he struck up a long correspondence that lasted from 1986 to 2002 with a guy called Donald Hartog. Cool last name, Hartog. And in his letters, he professed a love of the flame-grilled Burger King Whoppers.
Oh, J.D. Salinger liked them.
Yeah, loved a bit of a Whopper.
Oh, he must have relaxed his diet later in life.
Maybe the urine was helping the Whoppers go down. And then I've got two other weird things. He also liked to relax by watching Marx Brothers and Alfred Hitchcock films and doing crossword puzzles. They're not as weird, but what I'm trying to make out is he was a man of many interests and pleasures.
Okay. Well, my final fact, it's not a fact. I've got two quotes from Salinger. The first one is, he said, publishing is a terrible invasion of my privacy. I like to write. I love to write. But I write just for myself for my own pleasure. And then the second quote is, there's a marvellous peace in not publishing. It's peaceful. So famously known for being a weird private recluse that wrote and wrote and wrote but wouldn't publish after the terrible reviews he got in 1960-something for something he published. But his estate has announced plans to publish his extensive unpublished writings over the next decade, and they're sorting through all the writing he did now. So stay tuned. There might be more coming from J.D. Salinger.
Yay!
I don't know. Will you read more from him?
No.
Yeah.
Will you?
No, it puts me in a bad mood. It's very melancholy and you end up feeling quite low.
So the one thing I also think with these types of things is it's kind of mean that you're doing that when he obviously didn't want it published in his lifetime. They did that with Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. She never wanted it released, and they released it posthumously. And it's not a great book. There was a reason why she didn't want it, and I'm sure there's a reason why he didn't want his ones released either.
I don't know if his wishes
respect
were...
his dying wishes.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they were don't ever publish these, or if it was you can do what you like after I die. But his estate is his final wife and his son, Matt. And I believe Matt.
What about Peggy?
No, she's not a controller of the estate. It's just Matt and the last wife, the nurse that you mentioned. And I think she's quite a lot younger than his son, Matt.
Oh, yeah, because she was 40 years younger than...
Yeah, and he'd already had the son when he got married to her. So...
so weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're doing it against his will or not. And... don't really care.
Okay. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have made it to the final minutes of podcast number 10 of series 1 of the Book Trivia Podcast, Thank you, thank you, thank you. We just want to say thank you to all of our loyal listeners and subscribers who have been with us from our very first awful recording, which we do not like to speak about. Through many changes of mics, you've probably noticed the quality, well, we hope you've noticed that the sound quality has gotten better because we both finally bit the bullet and bought some really good mics, which you should have noticed around episode 7. But don't worry if you just can't possibly live without your Jess and Rach fit. We have a few bonus mini eps coming your way after this one goes up. So, Rach, have you got a teaser for us for the first mini
bonus
ep that we'll do?
Yes. Let's head down to Melbourne and meet a little girl named after a Greek goddess created by Daniel.
You had to get
I had to shoehorn it in somewhere.
You had to get in there.
Yep.
And my teaser is that we went to this author's launch of her new book that we'll be discussing. She's an Aussie. She specialises in intense drama thrillers with an epic plot twist at the end. So have a think. There's a couple of Aussie authors that do this well, but you'll find out soon enough who we are discussing.
So that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. And only if you liked it, rate our podcast on whichever podcasting app you use, or better still, tell a friend to listen. For more book trivia, find us at booktriviapodcast.com. And you can also follow us on Reddit and Substack, where we are Book Trivia Podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.